Good evening and welcome to the September 13th meeting of the Planning Policy Commission. Tonight we're going to start our discussion of the comp plan amendments. The city has one chance every year to make any additions, and we're starting our discussion right now. We're going to talk about land use, parks, open space, and trails. But first we have to have a little motion.
I move to approve the minutes, August 23rd, 2018.
Do I have a second?
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. So with that, I'm going to ask Kristen to explain what we're going to talk about tonight.
I would be happy to, but first I want to give you a quick update. So recently you all made recommendations to the city. Is it? I think it's on.
Oh, there you are.
I'm not close enough. So recently you all made recommendations to the City Council regarding the Old Town Sub-Area Plan and the Table of Permitted Uses 4.3B in the Central Issaquah Plan. And just as an update, those have both moved on to Land and Shore. We took those to Land and Shore last Thursday, and they discussed and had some comments, but they are going back to Land and Shore for more discussion on October 4th. And we're hoping that both of those will go, or at least the Old Town Sub-Area Plan will go back to City Council for action on October 17th. It's the same, or October 15th, excuse me, October 15th. Is it the same for Table of Permitted Uses?
That's what we're hoping.
And hoping the same for that. So just wanted to give you that update and let you know where your stuff's going.
Just a question.
Yes.
Do you have any sense of what the questions were that precipitated a long discussion?
Regarding which topic?
Either one of them.
So Old Town, I think more than the discussion, what took a while was that one of the council members was new and was not familiar with Old Town, and the other council member did not typically sit on Land and Shore, so he had not heard the previous discussion that took place the year before. So they really wanted to go through the entire plan step by step by step. And I think that is what took a long time. And they had a few questions, but nothing was big. There was nothing that was controversial. They just had some changes and a couple of questions. Permitted uses I didn't stay for.
Right. I think the main issues they really liked that PPC added some recommendations to the administration's recommendations, so they were trying to understand what all the uses were, not only that we were trying to limit, but that were existing. So we're finding definitions of them all. And I have a feeling that if we can't find definitions in the code for all of them, they may ask us to create them. They were also asking just some interesting ones, like you all had talked about, like metal fabricators, glass blowing. They were intrigued with some of those ideas. So it was a good discussion. We'll see how it goes.
Okay. So back to the comprehensive plan update, and Joan took a lot of my first slide, but wanted to remind you that we do the comprehensive plan amendments annually. And every year, we collect proposed amendments, and those come from staff, they come from the commission, they come from council, and from the public. We compile all of those proposed amendments into what is called our docket. Our docket then came to you all in January. You all reviewed it and recommended approval, and the city council approved it in February. And so that's what we're working on. So because, as Joan mentioned, we can only do this once a year, if all of a sudden you guys go, oh, tonight, we should amend this too. That'll go on next year's docket, not this one. So just a heads up. And I think that's it. I think that's it for that. Okay. So I'm going to cover part of this, and then Tricia's going to cover part of land use. Well, okay, maybe I will.
I can. I'm not sure which ones I'm going to do, but I'd be happy to do whichever ones.
Okay. So I'm going to talk numbers first. There were about 7 updates in total for the land use element, proposed updates. 3 of them were number 2, and they all have to do with numbers: population, housing, and jobs. And then we had transfer of development rights, remove and revise policies regarding the King County Island, because you might remember that we annexed that last year and we still had policies in the plan about it. And then add a policy regarding urban schools that actually went into the Central Issaquah plan. but we'll talk about it tonight. And then add a policy regarding new housing without loss of commercial square footage. That went into the economic vitality element. It was proposed as land use. So we'll talk about it tonight, but I just wanted to let you know that's where it wound up. This is kind of small, but we're going to start with Table L2, units toward the 2031 adopted state targets. So our adopted target is for 2031, it's 2006 to 2031. Our proposed new housing unit number is 5,750 new units. So last year we gained, I've got to get there because that's too small for me to read. Last year we gained, look at that, 445 new units. We are total at 85% of reaching our target, so we're getting pretty close. These numbers are, we submit numbers to the Office of Financial Management. The Office of Financial Management checks them, and then we confirm them, and that's how we get our numbers. We changed the word constructed or completed to permitted because we realized that OFM, the Office of Financial Management, actually counts units that have been issued building permits and not necessarily units that have been completed. So we're in an effort to remain consistent with what the state has. That's the way we have changed it. Okay, are there any questions about that one?
You remind me what happens when we hit our target and we're nowhere near 2031?
Nothing. It's not, it's just a target. It's really more what we can accommodate. It's not a ceiling for us. It's more of a floor. And what can you accommodate? If you go over, that's great, but we'd like to see you hit this number.
So do we have measures in place to maybe slow roll once we've hit that number? Are there conversations about things we would do to at least try to spread it out a little bit once we hit our target?
Well, our goal is to get all of the growth inside central Issaquah, where there isn't any housing, and we need the housing there. So if we get it there, that's great. I can't speak for council, but I would imagine if maybe something started to develop closer to the hillsides, although we have policies in place for that now too, but if things started to develop elsewhere, we do have a policy actually now that I think of it. If somebody wanted to rezone and try and upzone so that they could do more housing, we do have a policy that says that we have already met our growth targets, and so as long as those have been met, we're not going to upzone at all.
I guess one thing that I was thinking of was looking at these, where we're at right now on our targets, and obviously we all compare housing with jobs, or it's our two hardcore numbers that we're looking at. And I was curious if maybe staff wanted to try to start thinking about something down the road where in the next few years, when we anticipate meeting a target in one place and not in the other, how we might want to link them and say, well, if we are adding more housing, which, we've already hit this target and we don't necessarily need it, but we really do need some jobs. So how we might want to think outside the box to kind of boost one number when we're pretty steady on the other. I know it's a vague request, but it's kind of one of those things where rather than getting there and being like, oh, what do we do? Maybe start mulling around things right now as to what incentives we can think of.
Well, I think one thing we're doing with that, I'm sorry, Chris.
No, go ahead.
Cut you off. One thing we're doing with that is the no net loss.
Yes, that was
rule.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Because right now the market is delivering in Issaquah is delivering housing and not jobs.
Right.
And so in the exact spirit of what you point out, we don't want to lose the jobs we have, and so these new standards say no net loss.
Right.
And so potentially 5-10 years from now, we find a situation where Costco's expanding like crazy and no one's building housing. And maybe then we'd rejigger things and say, oh, no net loss of housing or something like that.
And
But
I think too, one of the reasons I was going to say that same thing, and I think that one of the reasons too that council asked, and I think you all asked for it too, to see the jobs numbers in there is to kind of do that comparison annually to see where we are and have checkpoints so that if it does come to that, then yes, we could reevaluate.
Just thinking how can we boost this rather than not only the loss, but also how do we.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
Another thing that I thought of with that was when we did the vertical mixed use analysis, one of the things that the market study said is that to build high quality, 1/5, 2/5, or 5/2, the market didn't support that right now.
Right.
And so there's a little bit of discussion about well, do we want to have this really high bar in our core of really high quality vertical misuse, like what downtown Kirkland and downtown Redmond gets if the market doesn't bear it? And then I think a couple of us made this point. We were like, well, our intent isn't to deliver vertical mixed use in 2020. The point is to deliver high-quality vertical mixed use in 2035.
Right.
And if right now land prices or rental prices don't merit that, that's fine.
Wait.
We're well on our pace to meeting our targets.
Yeah.
And we've got really high standards in central Issaquah. And if that means it takes a little bit longer for the development to emerge, that's fine, because we're very much on track to meeting the commitments we've made to the county,
The state.
the state.
Well said, AJ. Yeah. Okay,
Sorry I'm late.
that's okay. Anything else on this one? That's a good thought, Joy, though, and, yeah, duly noted.
I think it's probably an easy question, but looking at our new units permitted, 2018, 445, and then down in the subtable, it says new units permitted, 903. So
No, it's-
445 are units that were permitted within 2018, completed within 2018?
That's
And-
4,903 units. There's a 4 in front of it.
So yeah, it's the
The-
blue is the strikeout
Yeah,
below.
Yes.
Yeah.
so it's 4,903 units permitted.
Okay, so those are, how many units are in the pipe? And the 445 is what's been constructed in 2018 or completed?
No, they're all units that have been permitted, where building permits have been permitted, in the middle column.
Right? So the 445 is for 2018.
Correct.
Well, that's how many units are permitted, like Innswood would be in part of that
Oh,
445.
this was through 2018, and Inniswood has not yet received its building permit. So that'll show up, if they get their building permit, that shows up next year.
Okay. So what is the 445 then?
Those were the number of units that were permitted in 2018, between 2017 through 2018.
Okay, and what's the, so in that case-
April to April, too, so April
Oh, that's-
2017 to April 2018.
That's a 12-month number, the 445?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And the 4903 is then what?
That's the total number of units permitted since 2006.
Middle, it's a total of the middle.
Oh, okay, it's a summation.
Yes,
Yes.
Are all of these numbers April to April?
yes. I say that, and it's in the footnote.
I
Honestly,
did
can't-
show up late, so you may very well have said that.
Okay, yeah, it is April to April, April 1st to
Okay,
April 1st.
I see it right there, footnote number 1.
Okay, all right. Okay, you ready for the next one? Okay, this one is new this year. The city council asked for this. This tracks our job targets towards between 2006 and 2031. Our target is 20,000 new jobs, which is aggressive, but that's what it is. So it shows, just like the other one, it shows the new jobs per year or that were added or in some cases lost, and then the total city jobs in the right-hand column. This past year, or since 2006, we've had 7,089 new jobs, which gets us to just over 35% of our target. So in a third of the time, that's kind of on track. Our numbers come from the Employment Security Department, and you'll notice that these are 2017 and the housing numbers are 2018. Not much we can do about that. That's kind of how, that's just the rate at which they come in. So any questions about these? And you probably guessed the two where we lost jobs was the recession. So,
How much would the full Costco build-out deliver-ish?
oh,
I'm just curious.
and it's in Central Issaquah?
Yeah, if they fully built out what they're,
It's just over 19,000.
wow.
So Central Issaquah will accommodate most of those jobs.
Okay.
And are those new?
Yes, new,
All of them are new?
new,
That's 19,000 new jobs or 19,000 total jobs?
new jobs,
Holy smokes.
yeah.
We're going to need that
Oh, I lied.
legislation.
I lied. Well, wait, let's see.
Some of them are moving
14,000,
around, right?
14,555. And I'm not sure if that's in the urban core, if that's in Central Issaquah, but most of those would be in the core, so I was off. I apologize. 14,555.
Right, are new and the rest
Are new and the-
moving them around.
Yes.
It's a big campus. Have you seen the
Yeah.
plan? We're gonna build-
So that we're going to exceed the jobs numbers, or jobs target. That 14,000, because
We
if we
might.
have almost 13,000 left to go for target, once Costco, assume Costco builds out, as AJ's saying here, it would be 14,500 jobs.
That's if it happens before 2031, we
Yeah.
would.
Right,
But, I mean, we can't guarantee that.
Oh, I agree.
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
we could. Okay. The next one is our population and household projections. This one's been in there for a long time. It's required by the state. We use the same OFM numbers for housing units, and then we are provided also by the state with existing population numbers and the households. And then we are required to project out through the planning horizon of our comprehensive plan, which is through 2031, and so we use a formula for most of that to project out, and then we use the same numbers that the state uses. And then for the villages, we work with local knowledge and what is, oh, sorry. It's right here. We work with the villages and, we work with local knowledge and with what we know has been allowed or the entitlement there, what's been built out as part of the entitlement and what is left. So right now we have just over 37,000 people in Issaquah, 37,110, and 16,647 units. Okay, any questions about that one?
I was curious when we're going to get updated census data. I remember we were going through all the housing. Now I think it's been 2 years.
They do it every 10 years. We're ramping up for it right now.
Good.
It'll be 2020.
Yeah.
It'll be 2020. The information won't come out until about 2021 or 2022, but.
So, but before then, the state isn't projected to give any other updates to our local disbursement of demographics?
Yes, well, sort of. We'll do,
I mean, they'll
pardon me, we'll do
the
buildable
annual
lands.
stuff.
We'll do buildable lands and targets in 2018, 2019, or 20, it was supposed to be this year, 2019.
And we
I
get
think-
OFM every year.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
They're just not validated with the census
Right.
count.
And when you guys get that, you'll be sending that to us as just a,
it gets posted.
Oh,
It gets-
yeah,
It gets put out to the world, yes.
Are these numbers mutually exclusive? Looking at the total housing, total employment? So those are the numbers if everything got built housing and then if everything got built jobs?
Right,
So the reality is you would get somewhere in between the two of them?
yes.
Can I interrupt with going back to page 21 where we had table L4, our remaining land supply and capacity, and used as an opportunity for an update on the King County Island? There was talk about that piece of property being a school. I think there's talk about it now not being a school.
The school district had an option on it, and they decided not to. They did some geotech borings and some more analysis, and I believe that they chose not to use that site.
So, yeah, so that's what I heard too. What's now projected for the space?
I don't know what's projected for that space, but I know they're looking at a site in Tallis now.
Who currently owns it?
We do, city.
Yeah, so I think, I remember talking to staff about this a month or two ago. It's still zoned
Community
for
facilities.
Community, whatever,
Facilities.
community facilities?
Is there talk about, what I'm curious about is if it's maybe going to go over to parks, or, I mean, is it?
I haven't heard
have
any
anything.
discussions, but that doesn't mean that those higher up have been discussing. I don't know. We can certainly check when Keith's
Yeah, I
back.
guess when I heard that, I was a proponent of not building a school there. I didn't think it was an ideal site, so I was glad to hear that, and I was like, oh, I think this is a good opportunity to take this space and see what do we want to do with it as a city, and
Right.
so,
Right, we can sure ask and bring it back next time.
and it seemed like it might be a nice thing to add to our greenery.
Well, I thought it was a great school site, so I wanted to hold on to it until the school district came around to it for elementary schools 21 and 22, because we'll need them someday.
Someday. Someday soon.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So here's where I was going to have Trish take over, but I will do my
I
best.
can if you want.
Come on up.
Oh, really? Dang it.
Just to go down a tangent as Trish walks over, what's the Tallis site they're looking at? Is that the one that's zoned for
Office.
commercial?
The office site.
And is Compact School in a permitted use right now?
A school is, and we're working with them to make it as compact as possible.
Sure.
But it's just, we're just in the early back and forth.
And then before I forget, I noticed one of the pages we referred to urban schools.
Yes,
Yes.
Are you guys ready for that discussion? I think that's number 6. We're on number 4.
Well, we're getting there.
Okay, if we're going to cover it, I don't want to jump in. Sorry, I had donuts in my drive over. I was so excited.
Okay. Okay, well, until we get to there, this is the transfer of development rights. You may recall that we worked on some code this past year on transfer of development rights based on the end of development agreements for Issaquah Highlands, where council put some limitations on where in the Highlands transfer of development rights can be used. So we wanted to be sure that the policy reflected the limitation that council adopted in the, so this is pretty specific. We left a little bit of it open that says, the last sentence, the last part of the sentence, and other areas that can accommodate additional density without negative impacts to adjacent properties. We added that as sort of a catch-all in case something amazing came up, and because if something amazing came up and we only had specific locations, we would have to go through a comprehensive plan amendment to provide for that. So we wanted to leave a little bit of the door open in case something amazing should come up.
That's what the or other areas is for?
Yes.
Okay, and that's not, because I saw that and circled it and wrote loophole, question mark?
That
So it's
might
not-
be another name for it,
Okay.
yes. We call it an opportunity.
Understandable. 'Cause- Okay, but let's say someone comes, so the developer wants to do a TDR and it's not one of these locations. And they
Right.
say, oh, well, this qualifies under the other areas.
Right.
Does the city still have the ability to say no?
Yeah, I believe so. Well, we'd have to look into the TDR code and see if it meets the other criteria.
Okay.
And council also has to approve TDRs, which, yeah, true. So they can certainly say no.
Okay, because I was still wondering, because if the point of this was to narrow where the TDRs land, but it still is a loophole that you could put TDRs anywhere, I don't know if this actually accomplishes anything.
Right, not anywhere, only places that you can't have negative impacts to adjacent properties.
Okay.
Is that defined?
Yeah, through the criteria, I believe it would be.
Okay.
Right.
So the controls is still around the TDR stuff, not,
Yes.
Not here.
We still feel yes. Any other questions on that one? The King County Island is
did we
just,
skip page 23 and the stuff around topographical character? That was highlighted.
and you're making me be up here and you didn't go in order?
Oh,
Kristen,
if they're not in
Kristen tells
order.
me she didn't go in order, so which page are you questioning?
No, if they're not in order, I'm sure we'll get
They're
around
not
to
in
it. LU policy A7. I was just going in order of the printout,
Maybe
but
we'll get there. This is, I'll get to that because I'm not exactly sure what order the PowerPoint is in.
okay, yeah, if we'll get to it later, that's fine. But can you call it the page numbers then if they're not in order?
Well, the King County Island is number 7. It's land use goal M, which on my trusty table of contents on the front of your packet,
LUH5?
land use goal M,
That's different.
Oh, 32?
you guys are good. Yes, I believe
Okay.
it might be. I have page LU5, LU15, and LU16 are all the King County references. But this is cleanup since we did annex the King County Island. We needed to take out all the PAA language that still referred to it as part of the county. So this is pretty much housekeeping. We put in the discussion what happened so we would all remember what happened when we were cleaning up the East Cougar versus King County Island, and so that we all remember that we still actually do have a PAA left, even though we're still contesting that with King County. But
Do we still have to call it out because it's technically
yeah,
a PA?
yeah, technically it's still ours, but
And where is it? That's kind
we're
of.
not happy about it. It's west,
Can you point it on the
west
map behind you?
below Montreux.
So it's kind of above Montreux?
Yeah.
South of Okay.
It's in your packet.
If you go the hairpin.
Picture on the park one?
hairpin past the zoo, that all of a sudden goes, it's way up there, and it doesn't have sewer, the roads are not really urban. We don't believe it should have any kind of urban development. It has, water, it has wells. We just don't believe it's acceptable for urban development up there, because it's,
So we don't currently deliver any city services to it?
we say it again?
We don't deliver any city services to that
No.
right now?
Okay. Same, King County Island again. Urban schools, is this the one you wanted to talk about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
So my-
So, last year, you may have remembered that when Jennifer was here, we did a code amendment for schools that are not suburban. And we called them urban at first, and there was a bit of a ripple. And folks didn't like the name urban. Don't know why, but they didn't. And so we started calling them compact schools, meaning they are not suburban. They are more sustainable. They're on smaller lots. But you all were intrigued by the idea, and you said, next time we do the comp plan, could you bring us policies for urban? Because we believe that even though there are compact schools, we believe that there's also another layer of that kind of development, which is even more sustainable and efficient, and we would call that one urban. And so we have definitions that compact schools would be all the schools that we would like to see in Issaquah, and those are efficient, they're sustainable, they're on not as much land as the state would say you need or could have for a school. And in that compact umbrella is a smaller subset of urban schools, and the urban schools would be located in Central, where everything is supposed to be more dense, more efficient use of land, housing really close to everything so that you could walk. There'd be a lot more kids walking, a lot less single occupancy trips. So we're trying to differentiate an urban school and a compact school. And so we're using this initial round of the comp plan amendments to try to separate those and define them and set some policies so that when you see standards next year, we hope, for urban schools, that we will have already sort of laid the groundwork for how are they different.
That's kind of answering what my question was.
Good.
It sounds like
Okay.
this is our very baby tiny little start, and next year we're going to see a nice juicy document that says this is the policy, this is what they should look like, and it dives in a lot deeper.
Well, remember this year you dove in, you already did a code amendment for standards for compact schools. You gave them FAR, floor area ratio. You made 50% of the required parking be structured parking for compact schools. You changed the landscaping requirements. You made them build right out to the road. I mean, you did all that, but you had that niggling feeling that you wanted to see some policies for urban schools, not for compact as much, because it seemed like you felt pretty comfortable with the compact school piece.
I think what I remember too, you're correct. I remember too us having a discussion with the community as well, talking about what do this look like? Let's paint a picture the same way that we've been doing
Right.
for Old Town and everything. Let's do that for schools.
Right.
Because the old way is not happening anymore.
Right.
We need a different way, and it sounded like we've
Right.
had a little bit of miscommunication with the school district on it. Let's get
Right.
crystal about how we see this, and let's break it down. Let's have a discussion with the community about how do you see that you want to interact with these kinds of spaces and things like that.
Right.
So my question goes back to, we have this nice start right now. Does that mean that next year we're going to start to see this juicy policy document that really dives into urban schools in Issaquah?
Well, let me hang on to that. What we tried to do in the policies is we tried to be real juicy this time. We're saying that they have to offer safe ped bike routes, nearby transit routes. They have to minimize auto dependence. They have to make it easier for students, teachers, and staff to walk, bike, or bus. They're supposed to reduce automobile trips, reduce greenhouse gas. I mean, we're thinking we're trying to nail all the things that would make them different than another kind of school. Weather protection, waiting areas. The next one has that they have amenities for the neighborhood that they're in, like meeting spaces that you can share, the recreation opportunities. And then when you cite them, you use a smaller footprint, green building techniques, and any kind of sustainable practices that we haven't even thought of yet. We sort of lumped them into sustainable practices that you can use for compact development. So we were trying to go through all of the school topics and see how can we make them all be more focused on being efficient and sustainable and not car-oriented, not huge use of land, and make them more efficient, is what we tried to do
Yeah.
in these.
I liked all that. Do you want to jump in before I go?
Yeah, so all of these policies here, is this the first time we've seen them, or are these all?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So, yeah, so a couple questions. One, I think it would be helpful to walk through for each one of these, how they're different than compact schools, because some of these, it's hard to tell which of these is just reiterating
Right.
compact
Well,
school
these
principle
would all be,
versus.
these would all be for urban.
I know, but what I want to see is I think it'd be helpful to see a side-by-side between the two to understand the difference between.
Right, well, we
compact
don't
and urban.
have policies at this moment for compact schools. We
Okay, so
have-
that
we
then
have
goes to my.
code. We have code for compact schools.
I think that goes to my second question is looking at urban policy A6 with building heights and high-rise spacing. That really strikes me as building code specificity as opposed to policy statements like reducing the amount of automobile trips. That seems like a fantastic comp plan statement. But some of these, as you get a little bit further on, this really starts to read like code.
So, which part did you think was code?
A6.
Prioritize Act A6?
A6, formerly A3. UC policy.
Oh, I'm in central, I'm sorry. I'm in the comp plan.
Page LU 22 or page 38 of the printout?
Oh, I'm Parks element now. Which page? Oh, after, okay, after pop chart. No?
This is, as
Oh, this A6.
they find the pages,
Invest
I feel
public
like this is kind of something that
investment?
requires its own
No, that's EV.
meeting.
Yeah, and like a document,
some-
like
yeah,
the
not
same
just
way that
something-
we've been going through all these subsets and
Right, but you
neighborhoods.
said
This is a
A6.
big deal.
Oh,
and
allow
we
increased
talked
building
about
height?
a year ago being like, yeah,
Okay.
let's get some information, let's figure out how we're all feeling about this, and let's really fine tune this so that we don't have a situation where our money keeps being spent on schools that aren't really fitting the need.
Okay.
And then I was like, yay, but maybe this isn't the whole thing.
What's missing, though?
Well, I would love to see this be 20 pages. I would love to see this be like, I want to have.
But not in the comp plan.
But this
Not in the
isn't,
comp
this
plan.
isn't code, though. This
No,
is
not
only,
the- But to be able to base our comp plan off of something where we've had public forums for people to talk about, where we've been able to open up and a dialogue with the community, bring in the school district along the way to be like, hey, this is what we're thinking.
but what topic would be missing?
So like one thing that I didn't see that was addressed, right now we're talking a lot of like what's outside of the school rather than what's in the school. So for instance, sports fields. No more multiple sports fields. We need to combine them all into one area, and
Or can
that's most likely going to be on a rooftop. There's, we're not going to have space for that. We're going to also have to think about how we build schools as far as like maybe grand atriums that the school district loves to build. That could be classrooms. We're having, it's tough to go walk into a brand new school and be like, this is beautiful, and that could have been 5 more classrooms right there. So the way that we build the actual school, the way it's laid out and designed, isn't in this document at all, and that's okay as long as we're like, yes, but we're working towards really fine-tuning what we expect to see and what are the differences between schools in the core versus our urban school design.
So something like spaces
It's almost like architecture.
to be used for
Yeah. education
and learning versus something else, that it would be focused on,
Maximizing space to serve
No fun-
the
no fun
community
spaces.
rather than maybe just more grand architectural design. Yeah. So to me, I see it, being something where, because we're going to be stacking these schools in a way that's very different too.
And
We're talking about growing vertically rather than out, and so that changes how you're orienting also your space.
right, and they're going to have to do that sort of thing.
Right, and
If they are
I got the
unless-
feeling the last time that we had an interaction with the school district that they weren't quite on that same page. So also besides creating this document so that everyone is really clear on everything in the community, with the city, and with the school district, is that we kind of build that together as we go. So rather than we reach a point where the school district says, hey, we have space, we want to build, and then we start having kind of a collision, I'm hoping that we're kind of all coming together and learning and creating something, and we're all on the same page at the end of the day. Because right now, I don't know that we're able to be that way. I'm not saying that we're not on the same page. I'm saying that I don't know that we've had the opportunity to have everybody come together and have a lot of discussions in the community about what do we want our schools to look like, and how is our needs changed, kind of a thing.
Yeah, my concern is more process, but I think it echoes Joy. I mean, the term urban schools got everyone all hot and bothered, and we got a lot of public engagement, and I think we need that same level of engagement on this text, both from the public and I think particularly from the school district. I mean, you look at policy A2, community amenities in terms of meeting rooms in schools, like that's a big bugaboo sometimes, that people are like, this building is vacant, 80 days a year, why isn't it something that's open to the community?
Right.
And a lot of school districts are just not open to that concept because they run schools.
Right.
They don't run public facilities.
Right.
Like, we can't throw that as a policy and then not actually engage with the school and get the school board on board.
Yeah, and I believe we sent these when we first drafted them to the school district, and didn't hear a lot back, but I'm sure we will, once we swoosh it around and go to public hearing, we will send whatever version we have then, and work
But
on that.
I just don't want this particular one to then crowd out everything else in the discussions of the public hearing. I feel like it needs its own time in the sun. Because I want the school district to come and share their thoughts and object to things. We can have that conversation.
Okay.
I also feel like historically, the school district has been very unique in that they've been able to kind of get away with different behavior that we would expect from other developers or other partners in our city. And they're constantly getting exemptions. Well, this is what we need. And so they kind of flout whatever they have, because they kind of have this kind of, get out of building, get out of jail free card. Well, this is what we need, and so we'll just get an exemption. And we can't do that here. And so it's really important to somehow engage the community in a way that we help to bring the school district around to this concept. And maybe they are, and that's phenomenal. But the last time that we saw them, they weren't. They weren't in
Right.
any way that I felt confident that we were like moving forward together, which is really what we need to be successful. So
Right.
I love this start. I love a lot of these concepts, and I guess I just want more.
Okay.
We
Okay.
have a central Issaquah plan, we need a schools plan.
Yeah.
Well, they have a schools plan, the school district.
What do
But
we
is our
think of
schools
that?
plan?
Right, well, it's not it's capacity, it's kids, it's square footage, it's not, what do they look like, as much as, how do we pay for it, where does the bond go, what's the capacity, how do we build out in 6 years?
And
It's that kind
that's
of
not
a
our
thing.
job, that's their job.
Right,
But our
that's their
job
job.
is to say, this is how we want the buildings to interact with the space
Right.
around
I
them.
mean, we just went through all this with design standards, and we were so excited to finally be like, yeah, this is exactly what our city needs. We need that equivalent with education.
Right.
It's not just how it looks, it's how it actually functions and interacts in our community.
Right, right. And it's my understanding, and when they come to whatever meeting we want to specifically invite them to talk about it, I would rather it be when Keith's back, because he has a better relationship, with how they've moved forward. But that the bond that they did back in, is it 16 now, or 16? Was based on not urban schools. It was based on the building plans that they have had in the past. And so urban schools have a higher construction cost because you're going this way instead of this way. And so I think they've committed to build urban compact/schools in the next round of schools, not the one that they've gotten the bond money for. But I think we're trying to still edge them closer to a compact school footprint, even though we know that the bond amount isn't based on that, knowing that they probably can't go 100% to an urban model with this round of schools that they're building, just because they didn't have that in their RFQ when they went out to bond. But I think that would be a good discussion to have with them is, are they committed to go, as far as they could go with the money that they have?
They're not planning on building a school in the central Issaquah area,
Well, they don't have any land. No, they don't.
so And that would
Yet.
give us time to actually put a policy together for schools policy in the
Correct.
central Issaquah.
They do still have the bulk of that bond money left.
I think they have all of it because they haven't bought
Yeah.
any sites yet, correct?
So in theory, and again, this isn't my purview, so stop me if I'm correct, they could reverse course and build something that is more similar to a compact school, because even though they may be delivering less, they may be also delivering more in that it's more in line with what our community needs, and purchasing a piece of land that may be considered more expensive, but with still having this glut of funds, which I think has an expiration.
Right, and again, that's not my purview
Right.
either, but
But, so
from
that's- I guess
from
even
our
if that doesn't-
discussions, they didn't allocate enough money when they went out for the bond to build vertical schools. They
But
went with
that
the
shouldn't-
old.
That shouldn't stop us from setting better policy.
Oh, absolutely. It doesn't stop us, but it stops them, or it limits them a little bit from this round of schools to be built, to have them all the way that the community would.
These are two different conversations, though. That's their issue. We're talking about the policy.
Yeah, we set the
Right.
standards that we want, and the school district has to figure out how to
Inform.
meet their needs within those constraints. Just
Right.
like, as Joyce said, just like any of our other public partners, that's what we
Right.
expect from them.
Right. I think that would be generally true, right?
But our other partners don't worry about children and their education, so I'm a little hesitant with this conversation that dictating to the schools that they need to do this, this, and this. What if their goal is to get sixth grade classes in that building, and because you have an open atrium and this and that in a compact school, they're not going to be able to do that. So I think we have to be very careful about the amount of information.
But that's the whole reason we need to have them at the table, so we
Right.
can have that
But-
conversation.
But I just want to reiterate the necessity of being careful of going into a conversation with saying you have to have this, this, and this, when the school knows better, hopefully, what the children need and how they can be taught. That's all.
Compact schools are thriving all around this nation. And
Oh,
we
I'm
just-
sure they are.
No, I
And
think it's just important that we create something that works for the community, rather than falling back on an old model, even if there is this concept of, well, this is harder, let's just keep doing what we know.
no, I think, I don't think we have a choice but to go into compact schools. I just want to be careful about how much we tell the schools that they have to do in order to get what they actually need. That's all. I think we just have to be careful on that.
At a high level, the way I read it is this commission, we can set the policy around what the outside looks like, how it interacts with the community, and the school district comes down to what happens inside or how it's designed inside the building, right? And so it sounds like we're creeping into the inside of the school where maybe historically we're set to see how it, like I think a lot of these call out great bullet points and ideas for how the community interacts with the school as a building, but it doesn't creep inside the walls to say what they need. That's
Yeah.
how I read it.
Right.
Yeah, and that's true of everything. Whenever we write these policies, even when we're dealing with, for-profit developers, we don't want to be too prescriptive
Right.
and crimp development
Right.
because we want good
Right.
development. So that's
Right.
true for all these things.
And sometimes we set standards for the outside, which we think is awesome, but you end up looking at the school district and, well, I need that extra 3 feet because we need these 12 other classrooms. So, I mean, you just can't dictate to the extent that we think we can. It's not just the community, it's the kids and how well they can be educated and what they need in that school, so.
I have just a quick question just about process, because we're just getting introduced to all of these tonight, and there will be a public hearing. It sounds like right now that's the one and only opportunity for schools to come and talk and, interact with us on the issue. It sounds like others are hoping that there might be more, maybe just an informational session where they would come, but maybe they wouldn't come unless it was a public hearing.
Right. I can set up something, because we have 3 different meetings that we're talking about comp plan amendments.
Right.
And if we could agree on one where most of you all would be there, that we could invite the school specifically to talk about that set of policies before the public hearing, so that if you work towards some kind of middle ground, that we have time to draft that for the public hearing, if that would be a way to
I think that would
sort of
be
get at
great
this.
to have already incorporated the school board's feedback before we
Okay.
go to the
Okay.
public.
So when we get to next steps, I'll have you guys look at the dates that are listed there and see which ones you think, I mean, I know you'll be at all of the meetings, but which one would be the best one to invite and see if the school district can come and be with us at the table?
And it will be an open meeting.
Yes,
Just
oh
like
yes.
this.
It would
Okay.
just be,
Just
we
making
would just have
sure.
that on the agenda as talking about the urban school policy. Does that work?
Yeah.
And just so you know, when AJ had asked about why is some of them prescriptive, the overriding policy is urban community, is create a compact, attractive, mixed-use urban community that prioritizes pedestrian safety, comfort, and enhances the quality of life. And so that's why we talk about building heights and all those other things in there. It's not just the schools that we talk about in that. It's the whole community being compact and pedestrian-oriented.
One last point. So you talked about how the urban schools is a concept that sits within the compact schools concept.
Correct.
But we
It's a
we
subset.
only really have language around urban schools. Would it be useful to have a paragraph or a section header that then lays out what our comp plan vision is for compact schools, and then even though there's a lot more text on the urban side, that's a subset of it.
Right, and we would like that to go into the big comp plan, because this, again, is just central plan, but we're not sure if we can get that teed up in the next few weeks, because
Okay.
we're still trying to figure out, it's a real differentiation, that if you're standing in the lobby, it's very small as it would be, of a compact school or a very small lobby of an urban school, how would you really know that, what makes them different? And so that's what we're trying to figure out is, how do you make them different?
But I think we need to have thought that through before we can lay out urban standards, because we need to
Well-
understand what the difference
Well,
is.
right. That's what I'm saying, is
Okay.
we threw the first set down, and now when we see it, we go, well, if that's urban, then how do you back up a little to do the compact ones? Because
As long-
we already have compact code.
Yeah, as long as
Right.
we get there, that it's,
Right. We're
these are,
trying to get
these
there.
are compact schools, and then these are urban
These are urban,
schools.
right.
Okay.
Right. Excellent discussion. I knew you guys would love those. This was an exciting one that you came up with. This was a head scratcher. We all thought it would be in land use. It ended up in economic vitality because we thought it had a lot more to do with economics than it did with land use. And this was the one you talked about briefly, that to make sure that when we do non-residential, to make sure that we don't lose the jobs during
this applies-
during redevelopment.
This applies only to Central Issaquah.
Correct.
Do we define job opportunities?
I would guess not. I would bet not. I think we didn't want it to be, because again, this isn't in code yet. It's just the idea that when you're looking at redevelopment, if you keep redeveloping,
I thought it
You're-
was in code.
no,
Is that
you
what
all,
the- that was the only
you
thing we
all
have
said
it-
when Atlas came in and all the little strip mall with the garlic restaurant went away, people were getting nervous that, are we going to replace all of our retail and commercial with housing? Should there be some kind of a check that if you come in and you're going to redevelop on a commercial site, you have to have some percentage of commercial that you've displaced? And so we tried to figure out how to write that, and this is how we tried to write the policy.
So the policy is written, but if it's not in code, is it enforceable?
Right, well, remember, you're not supposed to write code without some policy direction that links it. And so we didn't have anything like that before because we were so happy to have housing on Gilman that we didn't think it was a risk.
Yeah, but
you all
going
said,
forward,
but if that keeps going, Gilman's going to be a residential street pretty
Yeah.
soon, so we should think about capping it. So this is what we started with.
But by adopting the Central Issaquah standards, I thought that made it code enforceable.
Well, there's no code standard in the standards that says that Atlas should have put in.
Well, I'm not talking about
50
Atlas. I'm looking forward to the next development. If we adopt this plan,
This is
somewhat-
just a policy.
or
It's-
just-
it
yeah,
would-
The next step is the code.
The next step would be the code, how the code would be.
so we've lifted the moratorium, so right now someone could come in and redevelop one of the strip malls and violate this policy
Yes.
if they filed tomorrow.
If they could, yes, they could just come in and just do residential.
So I've
Oh, in all of them? That's true. Bonus points for senior planners over here. When you all did the vision, which of course I'd forgotten because it was just last week, there are those developer obligations that you put in there, and so those would, and again, that's a real general statement
So
in
this is
there
enforceable via the developer obligations.
for a few of the neighborhoods. I don't think it's for all of them, though. I think it's just,
It's probably the
I'm going
urban
to say
core.
Pickering, Gilman, and one more?
Like,
Might be. Maybe. We can look at that, though.
okay. That's what I wanted to confirm, that this is currently enforceable in the core, even if it's certain parts of the core.
Right. I think it's loosely worded. What
I
neighborhoods?
think that's one of, if Lindsay was here, she'd be beating that drum.
Right.
Like,
She
it's
would
in the
know-
policy statement, but if it's not
She
enforceable,
would know the neighborhoods,
it's not,
too.
doesn't have any teeth.
Neighborhoods. Does.
I know this comment may just go into the wind, but I'd love to have this policy be extended into our other situations. I'm thinking particularly about development agreements that we have with developers, and I'm also thinking particularly about the Rowley development that's adjacent to Mall Street in Gilman. And while we don't know when or where that's going to look like, we have a lot of commercial there that's,
For Rowley?
yeah, so.
We really do know what it's going to look like. The development agreement has standards and pictures and requirements and allotments for retail, commercial,
Would you say that
housing.
we would be able to apply no net loss to that?
Well, no, they already have their entire, I mean, we know, it's like a package we already agreed on with them and the city council on exactly how much development they get, how much has to be retail, commercial, housing.
Yeah, we can't-
Right, so would you, so I get that we can't change it, but I'm curious, would you say that we would have no net loss for the, from,
Yes, we'd even have some housing
right, but we're not.
thrown in
gonna
there where
lose
there's no
any-
housing now.
We won't be losing any commercial.
Correct. We would not be losing any commercial, because I don't remember how much it is entitlement, but it's a big number. Yeah, it's a big number of
So,
commercial.
so that's awesome for the Rowley. Is there any other development agreements, would you would say, where this doesn't hold? Is putting this policy in place, is there anybody who would be like out of compliance with?
No, because Lakeside's all residential, and and Costco is just the opposite. Costco is all commercial with no residential, so they wouldn't be losing commercial job opportunities in the Costco development agreement either. Good. Any other comments on this one? That's a good one. Oh, whoops, whoops. What? Oh, well, goodness. And what page is this on? On page 23 of your packet, and that's the, as I call Dominique's page numbers at the very, very bottom, 23 of 63. Yeah, I should have remembered that when I went over that today. There were a lot of items in this packet this time. These are part of the land use element in the entire comp plan, not just in Central. And the first one, A6, is everybody there?
Yep.
Prioritize acquisition of forested hillside land that enhances connections to public land and supports community value of forested hillsides. That one was added to the docket, I believe, by Land and Shore. And that's how we wrote it. Are there questions on that one?
What do we prioritize it over?
In my mind, when we wrote it, it was when we're buying land, that if there happens to be a forested hillside for sale versus another piece of land for sale, that we would buy the forested hillside for the public versus perhaps something else. This, of course, doesn't bind your hands if you're the council, because again, there's no code connected to this that says thou shalt only buy the forested hillside if there are two properties for sale. But it sort of sets that intention that the community would like us to prioritize hillside land to buy for the public.
So this is a policy that may not turn into a code.
If it turned into a code, it would be, It'd be a tricky one because it's about, I mean, it's financial. So we would have to work with however we do budgeting and that kind of thing to see how we would craft that. But
this would-
it definitely sends a message. It sends an aspirational goal that
Okay.
if it's available, that we would try to buy it if we were in the market to buy some land.
But we wouldn't implement this with code, we'd implement this with budget.
Well, and that would, yeah, right, that
Money.
would, that would be a way to implement it, to make it happen.
Last month, there was a parcel over here off the, behind the Sunset Trail.
Okay?
Is actually going through development prospect, where it would actually have, I think, 40 condominium cottage units behind, there's a.
The trailhead?
That's right back here.
The trailhead?
Right, that would be right next to that. I can actually share the parcel number with you
Right.
here.
No, I think I know where you are.
But that would actually go all the way and take half the trailhead. Sunset
Whoa.
Trailhead,
Right.
all that parcel was actually for sale. It was, and then it went up for sale, and the city said, we're not interested in that. So why wouldn't we be interested in buying that? Because that's actually,
Well, we didn't have a policy yet, because this is just draft, and I don't know the history of that. I know often things come up for sale, and often the property owners ask us first, would you like to buy this for X, Y, and Z? And sometimes we're able to, and sometimes we're not able to. So I wasn't in the room when we chose not to do that one. I thought we owned, or somebody owned the trailhead there, though.
yeah, it is actually owned by a private individual. and
The
they
trailhead?
It goes
Yeah, I
all the way
thought
up to the trailheads. There's like 30, 40 feet from Sunset to where this new property boundary is, which would actually be almost parallel to the trail itself that goes up to that road.
Okay.
And that whole space is actually being looked at now for cottages.
Okay.
So this might be a good time to kind of like look at this, get this nailed down, and maybe look at that parcel, because looking 20 years out, that's a major trailhead for a lot of people.
Right, well, I don't think we would have lost the trailhead, because I think that's ours or King County, where the sign and the parking is
Yes, but
located.
adjacent to
But-
it, I mean,
right.
literally
Right,
parallel to that trail
right,
is that parcel.
right. And I don't know, and again, I don't know why we didn't go after it. But this is, I think this is why this one came up by, I think you all liked it. I think it came from Land and Shore, but then you all agreed that it should be on the docket. So that's how we wrote it.
I personally like it. In regards to the public comment we got about the word prioritize, I didn't read the document at all as being like, this was now the holy grail of our work, and now, traffic and everything else didn't matter. I didn't read it like that at all. To me, it's very clear when you see what section we're in, what we're talking about. So I like the word prioritize, and I think it fits right in line with what we feel, so I wouldn't change it.
Okay, good to know. Any other comments on that one? That's the short one of the two.
Does this have any impact on the, I think it's the Bergsma development, the one that Safety Blue Mountains?
That's
all-
actually, they're moving forward on those things. But this, I think, is another reaction to what happened last year that they,
But that project's vested, so this won't have any impact on it?
I wouldn't know, vested is a tricky word. I don't
Maybe
think,
vested's not the right word.
yeah, I think we're still working with I think we're keeping all the options open that we can as a city. But yeah, I don't think the final chapter has been written on that yet.
And to be clear, this policy is about how the city spends our money
Right.
on buying land, not necessarily on enforcing.
I guess I was looking at A7,
Oh,
was
I'm
more
sorry.
whether or not that would impact
Oh,
what
yeah,
that
yeah.
development can and can't do.
Right, topographic character.
Right. This is the next one is a reaction to hillsides and sloped sites, how they're developed. And this, part of this was solved in the architectural design manual that you all worked on for Central as part of the moratorium. They wanted some of the language actually put in policy form that would help inform how that's implemented. And so that's why, and the actual quote at the bottom won't be in there. It's just helping you all and helping us remember where we got the language. but that would be taken out before it was adopted. Are there any questions on that, the hillside part? Any other ones that we missed? Any other questions before we move to parks? Dun, 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 dun. I give you Emily. Today is her 4-week anniversary at the city. Woo, we are happy.
Oh,
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Emily Arteche. I'm a senior planner here at the City of Sammamish, and yes, it's my
City of
City of Issaquah, excuse me. That was a faux pas, so excuse me. 4-week anniversary from a neighboring jurisdiction, not to be named. So thank you for bearing with me on that. I'm here today to introduce to you some changes to the parks element. It has a longer name. The Parks and Recreation open space
trails.
It's an open space plan, but for lack of for brevity, I just put the parks element. And as you recall, the Parks Department came to present some of the work they were putting together. That recently was adopted in the 2018 Parks Strategic Plan. If you haven't seen that, it's available online. The City Council recently adopted this document just in July of this year, and the Parks Department came to you to kind of introduce the work they were doing in June. You had a public hearing on June 14th. So I'm here today to just go over and acknowledge the changes that have been embedded or are proposed to be embedded into the parks element from the strategic plan, and to go over a few quick adjustments or amendments that went on to the non-policy, non-goal related parts of the element. So as you can see in your packets, I've organized the changes that occurred from the work that was done on the strategic plan and how they were embedded into the goals and policies of the city's comprehensive plan in the parks element. I'm not going to go through each one of those, but did anybody have any questions at all as you may have looked at the packet material in advance?
Are we going to drop in, I noticed there was this picture's going away.
Yes.
Because it already exists in the comp plan, so it was duplicative.
Yeah, I did, on my next slide, I do have a brief discussion of other items that have been deleted or from the existing parks element. That's one of them. I also include on this list here the state requirement, just an update that the parks element, as you may not have known, is not a required element, but the city's had one for a very long time, and parks are very important. And though it's not required, I just made the adjustment in here, the proposed adjustment, just to acknowledge that we have a voluntary element that we're very proud of. Much of the other changes refer back to work that's already been done in the strategic plan, including the inventory summary and future park and rec needs. All of that is very detailed in the strategic plan, and so in an attempt to try to eliminate, a mimicking that was going on in the more detailed plan, we propose to actually eliminate that discussion. Is there any questions about that?
P19, P goal F regards implementation. What was Appendix B?
Could you say the
P19, it's goal F regarding implementation.
Oh.
In the discussion, it says the city has established a list of implementation strategies, Appendix B.
Oh, yeah, we're working on that next time. That's a whole separate part where we took all the implementation pieces out of all the elements and put them in one spot. And then this year, we're supposed to go through those and try to prioritize them.
Yeah, excellent question. So there is a reference to parks in that implementation. It's almost its own element of the comprehensive plan. And so that's still part of our work program.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will wait on that then.
And then this might be a similar question. So like the inventory summary that got taken out, is that now just showing up someplace else?
Yeah, as I referred to just a few minutes ago, in the park strategic plan, they've got a very nice comprehensive inventory listed. and park classification as well. So it really belongs it belongs in that strategic plan.
Makes sense. And then similarly, the level of service, all that language around our level of service is adequate, is that all addressed?
Yeah, we abbreviated it quite a bit. It is also in the strategic plan, and parks will be coming back, as I've noted on the screen, next year. You've asked them to come back again for another opportunity to look at the parks element, and I'm sure they're going to be talking about LOS as well. I mean, they've got some ideas of how they might want to readdress that in the future park strategic plan.
Well, it sounds like we'll have more information next meeting.
Right, and that would just be on the implementation pieces.
Yeah, there's no more, we haven't scheduled any more discussions for the parks element, but there'll be another opportunity in 2019 for the Parks Department to come back and address the goals and policies again with you, as we've understood from a previous meeting that you had some ideas about how you might want to reorganize them or address them differently. And I think that'd be a great opportunity as they plan to update the strategic plan annually. It's a great opportunity to get them in the right frame of mind for, goals and policies that you'd like to see us bring back and put into the parks element.
And actually, their cycle is 6 years for updating. They're not doing it annually. But it's an odd piece that you all requested to do the goals and policies again. So they agreed to do those next year, but the whole plan wouldn't be updated for 6 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Trish, thank you so much for clarifying that.
Because I can see that.
Yeah, it's not annual, but they will be back next year, not every year after that.
Right.
And then the development impact fees got stricken and put somewhere else, right?
Right, those
Yeah.
are actually, the impact fees, we're working on updating those now. We hope to have them done mid next year, because we were waiting for them to finish the strategic plan and the list of projects, and now we're waiting for them to put price tags on the list of projects, because that's what goes into the impact fee calculations, is how much money will it take for us to build those when everybody comes to live here, and that's what gets rolled into the impact fee.
And isn't that usually cited here, what that calculation is in this document? Don't we usually have the impact fee?
No, we do it in a rate study, and then we put the outcome of the rate study in the plan, and that's what we call the level of service.
Okay, so will we have that updated number for this year?
No, it won't be done until
Won't be
next
done.
year.
Okay.
Good question, though.
Any more questions on the parks element, proposed amendments? If not, I'm going to turn it back over to Trish for some wrap-up on next steps.
Next steps. In 2 weeks, not next week, 2 weeks, we're going to do the transportation element amendments. There's only a few, very few. And Appendix B, that it sounds like you were all excited about, those will be coming back. And if that's a night that you're all going to be here, we could invite the schools, or we could invite the schools October 11th. You also have another public hearing that night for a new code amendment that you're going to love, I think. But we could also invite the schools that night and have a really great conversation about urban schools. Or, well, those are the two that would be coming before the 25th, which was when we hope to have a public hearing. If you're not ready on the 25th, we could bump it to November. It wouldn't bother me to bump everything to November. The council is busy with budget and all sorts of things, so I think we would be fine if you all needed more time, because heaven knows there's been so many other projects going on with you all this year that to start the comp plan in September hasn't happened in many, many years. Usually we're well into it by September, and we've just all been very busy.
I think for the school, I just want to make sure they have time to digest and give us good feedback. So if they can do that in 2 weeks, great. But I also want to be respectful of the time for the staff probably needs to review it, and
Okay.
it would be great if the board had an opportunity to provide their thoughts to staff before
Okay.
the district staff came here.
Okay.
So I mean, if they can do that and we can have a good conversation on the 27th, great, but
I'm sure that everyone's busy over there with the start of the school year, that there's
Right.
a lot of things going on, so I wouldn't expect a 2-week turnaround from that.
So maybe October, the 11th or the?
Yeah, I mean, I
okay.
love the idea of them coming when we're also inviting the public, and so I would ask the chair to maybe create a space that we could allow the public to comment on it as well, and just use it as an opportunity to see, as kind of a, a gauge, and see what people are thinking. It
Okay.
couldn't hurt, but again, I would defer to the chair for that agenda.
Would you all mostly be here on October 11th if we sort of thumbnailed that one as the first try?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Is that really enough time for you? It's only 2 weeks.
Oh, the 11th.
October 11th, that would be 4 weeks. Well, we would. We'd give them this language and then go back and forth. It depends what Keith does.
Are you putting that in as public hearing or public comments?
Yep.
Just comments?
It would just be an open meeting like today is. And again, if they're not available, we can bump it into October and then bump the public hearing till November. That's okay, too.
How do we instruct the school district to review it based on what we talked about tonight? We can give them the set of policies, right?
Right.
But some of the discussion tonight was talking about lack of policy. So instead of, surprising them when they get here, I don't know what do we think?
I can send them
How do we
the,
give them a kind of a heads up of what
right.
we
I
thought
can
was
s-
missing
I
or?
think the summary would basically, staff would basically communicate that we're looking to create policy for both urban and compact schools, and we'd like to create something that works for both and distinguishes both as being unique, and kind of like setting out those things that we're hoping to figure out.
Right. And I could send them the link of the video for tonight, too, so they could actually see how you discussed it.
Okay.
But it wouldn't surprise me if we tried to meet with them before we met with them here, just to keep the surprises at a minimum.
Yeah.
To just kind of chat through stuff.
Just makes it more constructive. We'll get through a lot more.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, and that's what we want. We don't want to surprise anybody, right?
I don't want to go into a meeting and say, here's what we are proposing. I'd rather have it start from basic scratch and come together with some ideas than
Right.
tell the school district or anyone what the city's going to do at this point in time.
I think what staff's put together so far is a great starting point.
Yeah, I do too.
You agree?
I just think we need that element of collaboration with the community, school district, with the city, so that we create a policy that works for what we want and can actually be executed, rather than just creating a policy that the district then says, well, that's a nice thought,
Sounds good, yeah.
And also that we address the needs of what everyone is saying that they're wanting for creating schools.
Okay. Other thoughts, other ideas? Okay. So we'll redo the schedule depending on when we can work with the school district and when everybody's, the planets all aligned for all of us. And the public hearing might be in November if we need to adjust. We sent out, I think, yes, we did. We sent out a tentative, not a tentative, we sent out an alternate meeting so we don't have to be here on Thanksgiving, although I know you would want to be all together on Thanksgiving. We haven't ever done that, so we try to snag the meeting ahead, the Thursday ahead of Thanksgiving, to all be thankful for each other and to have a PPC meeting. And so I think we've already snagged the date and done an RSVP to you all, because we figure you're probably busy that next week. So if we had to bump the public hearing or any of the meetings, we do still have 2 meetings in November that we can work from.
I'd recommend not putting the school district on that 11:15 slot, just because we're going to
right.
be in the Pickering room. It's a little tighter.
And
so.
that's kind of an odd, right. But I'm just saying we still have 2 meetings in November, even though you might have thought that we didn't. Any other thoughts on that whole piece? Okay. Anything else you would like us to know about transportation or implementation?
Any update on the transportation staff and/or the transportation commission?
The staff is coming
The staff is coming on
That's very
Monday.
on Monday, but I haven't heard
Yes.
what's
And-
going on with the committee, if they're,
Right, they were waiting to get staff on board before they started hiring, looking for the committee, the TAB, the Transportation Advisory Board, is what
Oh,
it's
it's a
going to be.
board.
It's a board, Transportation Advisory Board.
Okay.
And I think bylaws have been adopted by council, but they were waiting to go out and interview people until the staff had come on board.
Sure. Okay.
I'm very excited.
anything else?
What's the status? We had a meeting with the small cell wireless communication. What is the status? Has anybody come in and requested permits?
And I think yes. However, we just met, there's some sort of a moratorium that we're trying to figure out. Keith mentioned it. Keith, that's usually sitting here, he mentioned it, and we're trying to sort out what it means. Is it coming from, and all I heard was that all the cities are trying to figure out what the moratorium is. Does it usurp all the work that we did, or does it, and that was on Tuesday, and I haven't heard an update on that. But I can find out just from the different, but yes, someone had come in with permits for that, but I think everything is kind of stopped.
Who did the moratorium? The county? Or?
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out. It was one of those, we got an email from the law firm, we got an email from the state, and it was one of those where you try and figure out what everybody's saying because everybody isn't really saying the same thing. So we were all trying to sort it out, and Keith's like, oh, I know about it, and then he's not here. So it was one of those, if he was here, he would be able to go, Joan, I got all the answers. But yeah, he took the answers with him. But he'll be back, and I will find out.
We had that long discussion. It was basically decided that they were going to come back to us in a year.
Right.
So hopefully that's on the schedule sometime to actually do that after the moratorium
Right.
is over and we know what
Right, but
the
that's a
first
good
one
thing to
were.
put on for next year, is to make sure we revisit small cell. And I think it was to revisit after someone had installed, right?
Yeah,
Was
the
that
first one was
per-
supposed to go in.
Okay,
and then
that's
because it was getting ready to go into the permitting stage, and we wanted to know how it would look and act
right,
before we had 200 other ones.
right. And I can ask Lucy, because she might have heard more about it since Tuesday. Okay, any other good questions? You guys are on fire tonight. This is exciting. See, AJ, what you miss when you're not here?
No.
Dang it.
It was very sad.
I could.
Glad to be back.
Okay, well, that's all I have.
I will leave you guys, though.
So that's no other updates for the good of the order or anything?
Not that I
So,
have.
anything that you guys want to talk about? Go with-
Public comment?
Well, I had this speech prepared that I was going to say, we would have a public comment after we had discussed it, but looking out there, I don't think I see too many heads that would be willing to come up and say anything. So with that, I'm going to close the
Okay.
meeting at 7:50.
Okay. Well done.